This is Duke University.
Back in 2015, not necessarily in response to a specific issue, but just understanding that we needed to better appreciate the diversity both in our classrooms and in our research laboratories and in our community as a whole. I started a diversity committee, and initially it was just involved one faculty member and one graduate student, but actually the level of initiative from the graduate students was so high we actually broadened it out to a large graduate student focused committee. A suite of activities were launched. The very first one was called Donuts for Diversity.
We just get some coffee and some donuts, and sometimes the discussions are more unstructured. Sometimes they're a little bit more structured, where we solicit talking points from the department via an anonymous forum. And we get together, we break into small groups, and we discuss amongst ourselves some or all of the points, and then come back together at the end and bring them up. And sometimes we take these to turn ideas that come out of these workshops into actionable items.
In the teaching assistant training that we do for new TAs at the beginning of the year, we have a section kind of reserved for the diversity committee now to talk about inclusive teaching practices that the TAs can use in their own classrooms when they're working with students.
So one example that our department has promoted with the inspiration from our graduate students in this regard is to have greater inclusivity in, for example, examples we use in the classroom. Not talking just about scientists who are straight cisgendered white men, but also talking about the really, really important contributions by women, by people of color, by people who are not cisgendered, etc.
But we had a workshop on gender and sexual diversity run by the Center for Sexual and Gender Diversity here on campus. We also had a workshop on disability as diversity. We invited some speakers in to talk about implicit bias and how to recognize and challenge implicit biases in yourself. A lesson planning workshop that's going to focus on lesson planning for inclusive classrooms at all levels. We're going to have a speaker, Brian Drewsbury, come in to talk about setting up expectations and structuring your classrooms to create inclusive classroom environments. We're also going to have a workshop that is on addressing bias in evaluation methods.
People tend to think of diversity training in the context of stopping issues of harassment or overt bias or things like that. That's obviously a piece of the puzzle, but that's kind of like equating medicine with ER trauma surgery. What we really want here at Duke University is to provide an environment where people can succeed and thrive and achieve their aspirations. That's really what we're looking for.
We're starting to see culture change in the department as a result of the different workshops that we're doing. For example, we had a faculty member send out an email about an article that came out regarding bias in letters of recommendation. And that sparked a conversation across faculty and students in regards to when you're writing letters of recommendation, these are some things to think about to make sure that your female students, you're describing and supporting in the same way that you would your male students. So it goes to show that we're getting people in the department actively thinking about these issues in any facets of their time in the department and making sure that their colleagues are paying attention to them too.
An inclusive environment is one where everybody is contributing and everybody feels that they belong and everybody is advancing what it is people are trying to study.
Any sort of academic, you're starting with this big problem or this big question and you're figuring out how to address it. So if we have the creative thinking power to do that in our academic lives, then we have that same creative thinking power to do that when it comes to diversity and inclusion or anything else we put our minds to. And if you're creating an environment where everybody who is a part of your department feels valued, feels like they can succeed unencumbered by any facet of their identity, then they're working at their best. And if you're getting their best, then there's no telling where you can go from there.